Well, I saw that your artwork for today is that Breonna Taylor, so I assumed we're going to talk about that case and the rioting that's happened.
Yeah, and we never really talked about the Breonna Taylor case in detail, and I think it's worth going over what the facts of the case are, and then going over the proximate causes of the protesting, just so people understand what is and
Yeah.
isn't true about the situation. Is that?
I actually would like to review the case with you because
Mm,
I've since heard things that it's weird. I've heard people give conservatives giving facts about Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend and facts of the case, but in with those facts are some things that I'm not sure if they're true. And secondly, I understand giving facts because we're living in a culture and a society now where the media is selling us a certain narrative and we're often not getting the facts. But at the same time, I don't think that there's a need to try and sully her reputation because of things her boyfriend did. She was innocent. There's Her murder was tragic. Her death was tragic, and I don't like the idea of trying to denigrate her. But I do want to know what the facts of the case are. So if
yeah,
we
I,
could go
I
over
don't.
them, that
I
would
don't
be
think it's really appropriate to denigrate her, and certainly she didn't deserve to get killed by the
not at
police,
all.
right?
Like,
So, like that I think is clear to anyone who's fair and rational. Um, I think it is worth noting just as a life lesson. Um, you hang around with bad people, you're more likely to have bad things happen to you. And she certainly did cavort with people who were likely to get her into situations like that, and that's not smart. But it doesn't mean she deserved to die, and certainly,
right.
certainly, it doesn't justify anything that the cops did. However, uh, yeah. So let's. Can I just? Well, I mean, I can. I have a little. I went through and kind of put together the pieces as I could understand them based on all the information. So I can just go over it if you want.
Yes, I would
Um,
like to see what you.
okay.
I figured you put something together.
Yeah, I
So
know.
thank
I know
you.
you figure that. It's fine. She's rolling her eyes, but she relied on me doing it, so that's all
No,
good.
I did rely on you. Well, I had a dinner party last night, and I thought Carter's probably preparing right now. Or were you playing Dungeons and Dragons?
No, I was preparing.
Uh,
Actually, no, I mostly prepared this morning. Last night I was probably playing Smash Bros. But I relaxed last night because I was going to prepare uh, during the time that we ended up going live with Gabriel, and then the Gabriel conversation was so exhausting that I was like, I'm just gonna sit on the couch and play Smash Bros. Uh, so that's what I did. Okay, so on March 13th of this year at
okay.
12:40 a.m. in Louisville, the Louisville Metro Police officers, three Louisville Metro Police officers, um, Cosgrove, Hankeson, and Mattingly, um, served a warrant, quote, served a warrant to Breonna's residence. Now, there's a few people that we need to. There's three people that I think are key to know. There's other names, but there's only three that are key to know to really understand what happened. One is Jamarcus Glover. He was an alleged drug dealer. He had actually been in prison previously. He was heavily involved in drugs and stuff, and was the target of investigations. Has been arrested. He was one of their primary targets. The other person to know, obviously, is Breonna Taylor. Breonna was Glover's ex-girlfriend, but she wasn't just his ex-girlfriend. According to police documents that have been, I guess, leaked to the media or obtained, um, so Glover used her phone number and address for various things. So like he had his car towed and he used her phone number as his own, and that he used her address as his address. Uh, their bank records on the bank statements, he used her address as his address, and mail addressed to him was found at her residence. Now, maybe they just lived together, and that's why. But she was living with a guy who, if they did live together, and that's the reason he was still using her address, then it's reasonable that that will be a place that gets searched. There's also a question about whether she was managing money for his. According to phone calls that Glover made from jail to the mother of his child, he said, quote, the officers, quote, took my car, they got that bank statement out the armrest, boom, it got Bree's address on there. And he says, Bree got down like 15 grand. She had the 8 I gave her the other day, and she picked up another 6, he said. Then a moment later, he told the woman that, quote, Bree been handling all my money because she been handling my money. She been handling shit for me, and cause it ain't just me. So, there's some involvement potentially there.
Okay.
And then the third person to know is Kenneth Walker, who was Taylor's current boyfriend, who was at the residence during this thing. So here's the timeline. The cops go get his search warrant. Now, by the way, can I just pause just personally and say this? I hate the war on drugs. I don't think the war on drugs should exist. All of this could be stopped if there wasn't a war on drugs. So, but if you're going to go with war on drugs as a thing, then you hire police officers to enforce it. And what I'm about to say is what transpires. So they go get a search warrant for Taylor's residence. According to the warrant, they saw Glover get a package from Taylor's home, and obviously he used his address on documents. The search warrant does include her home address, her apartment number, photos of her apartment door. It includes her name, her birthday, her social security number, all listed on the warrant. It's untrue if you hear them say, like, they got the wrong house. That's not true. She was on the warrant. Her place was on the warrant. This was...
Okay, well, that's an important point, because that was one of the first things I heard about this and believed for a while to be true, was that they got the wrong house. So I did not realize that
they didn't
her
get the
name
wrong
was
house
on
at
the
all.
warrant.
Nope.
Yeah, okay.
Jamarcus Glover's name was also on the warrant, as was a guy named Adrian, or guy or girl, I don't know who, Adrian Walker. I don't think there's a relationship between Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend, and Adrian Walker. I think just a common last name. But all three of their names, Glover, this other Walker, and Breonna, were all on the warrant. They also executed a warrant that same night, about 10 miles away from her home, at another house on Elliott Avenue in the Russell neighborhood. That's where they found and arrested Glover. So it sounds like they did simultaneous raids on a couple different properties, which is what you do. There is some argument between Taylor's attorneys and the police about whether or not the police falsified changed the time on the raid for the other house. It says 12:40 on the document, but it looks like the 40 is like light, and they're saying you just added the 40 later. It was really 12, so you knew 40 minutes before, because they raided Breonna's at 12:40 also, right? So they're like, you knew you had the guy already, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter because they're going after evidence, so just because they had Glover doesn't mean they don't still go after Taylor's residence. Anyway, so basically simultaneously this is happening. It was a no-knock warrant, but police did knock. There's not dispute about that. All right? Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, said he heard pounding at the door. That's called knocking.
Can I stop you there and ask you, for anyone like me who wants to know, what's the difference between a warrant and a no-knock warrant? And is the act of them knocking, even though they didn't, I guess, presumably didn't have to knock, does it now make it no different than if it had not been a no-knock warrant?
No, it's not no different. There is some nuance here. And so they knocked. They claim they identified that they were police officers. He claims he never heard an identification. Mm-hmm. So I think a regular warrant, you knock, you say, hi, we're the police, we have a warrant. The person, I guess you can force your way in, but I don't know if you can just barge right in the middle of the night with you don't just knock and go in. I think a normal warrant, like, they serve and talk to you, and right. This is my understanding. I'm not a cop, but knocking doesn't make it not a no-knock warrant. They're still behaving in a different way than they would for a normal warrant. Let's put it that way. That much is true. Anyway, so they knock on the door anyway. They claim they said they were cops. He doesn't hear that, but he hears the knocking. He does call 911, and he and Breonna Taylor get up out of bed. So there's another narrative going around that she was shot in her sleep. She was not shot in her sleep. She was shot in the hallway. He got up, he went to the door, and as the police were coming in, he shot them because he thought that they were intruders. So he fired one shot at 12:43 a.m., according to the arrest citation, and officers fired back. He struck the officer Mattingly in the leg. And the officers fired back with more than 20 rounds, and Taylor was in the hall and shot and killed.
Did he fired first? Is that
Yes.
disputed?
No, it was not disputed.
Okay.
All right. So just to go over some false info. She was not killed in her sleep. They didn't have the wrong address. Her name was on the warrant, right? So that's basically what happened. I mean, that's kind of the gist of what happened. Now, in my opinion, Kenneth Walker was totally justified in shooting. Completely justified in shooting. Someone breaks in my door in the middle of the night and I don't know that it's cops 100%. I shoot them. Or I shoot at them. Maybe I get killed or whatever. But what the hell was he supposed to do? So I think he was absolutely justified in shooting. And likewise, if you're going to have laws that say cops can do this, they're kind of justified in shooting back at that point. Like, you are asking for a firefight by saying, cops, in the name of the war on drugs, you're allowed to kick people's doors open and go in guns blazing. Like, if that's what you can do, then you're asking for gun violence. Like, that, you're asking for a war. That's what you're asking for. And I know there's arguments about this safety crap. This is one of the things that bothers me. There's like, well, for the cops' own safety, they have to do that. It's not safe. If you're looking for a person, you can wait till they come out of the house and arrest them when they go to the 7-Eleven. If you're looking for evidence, you can wait till they leave and sneak in or break in afterwards if you've got a warrant. There's not a reason to scare people who are potentially armed in the middle of the night and go in guns blazing. That's not for cop safety. I don't know what the hell that is. But if we didn't have the war on drugs, none of this crap would happen.
Somebody says, just to clarify, there's a lot of chat. You guys are active today. But somebody says the cops did not go in guns blazing. What are you talking about? I think that's a matter of semantics. Carter doesn't mean they were firing first.
They didn't fire first, but they went with yeah, you're right. Sorry, go ahead.
He just meant they went in with guns.
Yes,
and he already stated that Keith fired first.
Yeah, and also when I say they go in with guns blazing, I'm kind of speaking generally about a lot of warrants. Like, we've now elevated the conversation. We went through the facts about Breonna Taylor, and we've elevated the conversation to these no-knock warrants in general and the war on drugs in general. This is what happens when you do this kind of stuff. I get the upset about it, but if you want these laws, you're going to have people enforce those laws, and this is what you get when the laws are such that this is how they're enforced and this is what you get. Then, you're gonna have mistakes like this because, let's get to the grand jury, because I think this is why the grand jury didn't indict. So there was two things that happened recently. One was the settlement. So the city of Louisville settled with the family. They reached a $12 million settlement with the family of Breonna Taylor.
And this was a civil suit, right?
This is a civil suit. They also promised some series of police department reforms. This is the largest settlement in the Louisville police history. And it's important, when people complain about the settlements, I don't see a reason to complain about settlements. A settlement is a mutual agreement. So it means it's not a verdict. They didn't take it to someone and then justice wasn't done. Both sides agreed that this is acceptable to us. So it's a settlement. You can't be like, justice wasn't done. Her family decided justice was done. They decided to stop and settle for this amount. That's what a settlement is. It's a mutual agreement. So that was the civil suit. And then on Wednesday, we learned that the grand jury, they decided that criminal charges should be brought against only one of the officers involved in the death, but instead of relating to killing Breonna, the charges for endangering her neighbors with wild shots. 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the first degree for, quote, endangering her neighbors with wild shots. So there was the grand jury decided that there wasn't sufficient evidence to charge any of the three cops in the wrongful death of Breonna Taylor. And again, this isn't the system keeping these people down. A grand jury is regular citizens, like normies were selected on a grand jury. These are your fellow residents who were on the grand jury that decided that these cops shouldn't be, there wasn't enough evidence to indict them for the murder of Breonna Taylor. And I think the reason is the law allows the cops to serve the warrants in the way they did. They followed the rule book and they were fired upon as you would expect and as they were deserved to be fired upon. And I would have fired upon them too. And they shot back as you would expect. So I think from a legal perspective, the problem is this is all the way it's designed to work. It worked the way it's designed to work, and then an unfortunate thing happened. I don't like the design, and if you're going to protest something, I would say stop protesting law enforcement and protest the laws.